Behind the major winter storm that's finishing in the eastern US, we have a new weather setup on the way, and this video has the overview. That will include a look at a couple of new storm systems on the way into the coming days, plus some temperature trends ahead, so stick around for all of those details right here. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and jump into the overview for the upcoming pattern using this blended guidance and what it shows for the atmospheric pattern at 15 to 20,000 feet on up into the sky. This graphic is never as complicated as many people may think it is. Anywhere where you're seeing the blues on screen is where you generally have dips in the jet stream, where the jet stream is diving down and bringing some cooler than average air, and that typically means that we have some storminess to bring that in. On the other side of things, where you see oranges and reds on screen, that's where the jet stream is being pushed north, and you tend to have warmer than average air. And in this case, as we try to see that rebound of warmer than average air into the south central U.S. as we go towards our Thursday and Friday, we are going to see another system indicated by those blues in the west with a associated jet stream dip called a trough. And what that's going to do is actually send another piece of energy right on out here out of the west, where it will bring some snow and some valley rain, and then eventually send a new system out into parts of the central plains and briefly over into the Midwest. We'll see a quick system out of that, and then we'll also see another little cutoff piece of energy from that you can see it rides towards the southern and southeastern U.S. That looks like it will bring some impacts there with our next storm system into those zones around Saturday into Sunday. Both of these storm systems I'm mentioning will be weak, and then the main new pattern that we really will begin to see settling in by next week is oranges and reds filling a lot of the central and eastern U.S., and long story short, this means your jet stream is being pushed north just like this, and that's going to allow for a flow of much warmer than average air across a lot of the country as we see spring-like conditions filling in. I'm going to break down all of those aspects of the pattern ahead that I just overviewed for you as we go through the rest of this video, so let's go ahead and jump right into that. Let's talk about the precipitation pattern first, as we're going to unravel those brief two storms that I talked about that are going to be on the way as we go through the next 5 days or so and through the weekend. We're going to use this high-resolution European future radar because this model did a great job projecting the big storm that you can see there moving off the east coast as we go out of Wednesday into Thursday. While it will leave some lingering snow showers in the interior northeast and some gusty winds up and down the east coast into Thursday, most spots will be clearing out and remaining cooler and drier now as we go towards the finishing part of the week. Although we are going to see our next system already in the west, in that origin zone that sends system is east by the time we get out of Wednesday into our Thursday. So tonight as I'm recording this, and then as we go overnight into Thursday, things will be going strong with some snow filling up a lot of these moderate to higher elevations here of the west. Nevada, Idaho, back down to Utah and northern Arizona, and then over into parts of Colorado and Wyoming having the best chance to get hit hard, especially as you get up in elevations where many spots could get close to a foot or more of snow on that higher end. As we get out of our Thursday and into our Friday, though, that's when we're going to see this energy quickly transfer into an area that is, keep in mind, drier as a result of the most recent storm going off the east coast. So this is going to be in a weakened state by the time it gets out into places like far southern South Dakota, parts of Nebraska, Iowa, and into Illinois. But wherever we do see precipitation, it's also in an area that's cooler than average because of the last storm moving through. So most weather that we see overnight Thursday night into our Friday that brings precipitation will come down in the form of snowfall here into some parts of the central plains over into the Midwest. That will continue to be a trend, rain mixing with snow at times as you get over into some parts of Iowa, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, and Ohio through late day on our Friday. And then from there, we see a brief round of showers Friday night into parts of the Ohio Valley, and then that first little wave of energy moving through the pattern is done, making way for the next little piece of energy that's actually going to get going down into the south central plains with low pressure forming around Texas, bringing up some moisture and warmth on its front side as we go into the afternoon. Cooler than average air right on its backside there, bringing some snow out of New Mexico and into the Texas Panhandle. No major impacts are expected out of this system either, but we can at least watch some stronger storms as we go through the day Saturday down closer to the Texas and Louisiana coast. It will just be a cold rain as you go further north into Oklahoma and Arkansas, where we could even maybe briefly see some snow if we get just enough moisture still lingering around into the nighttime Saturday night. You can see here the European model indicating that we could get some brief showers through some parts of the southeast U.S. as we go out of Sunday into our Monday, but these impacts don't look too substantial either, and the GFS model hasn't blown up a huge storm out of this just yet. I do think the impacts could extend a little bit further north into some parts of Tennessee and North Carolina as we get out of Sunday and into the early part of Monday, but either way, all guidance carries us off the coast by Monday afternoon and evening, and then from there, we're really entering that spring-like pattern with warmer conditions filling up a lot of the country. While the rain impacts of both of those systems look pretty negligible, although we could see some isolated scattered flash flooding out of that second system closer to the Gulf Coast and the southern U.S., I want to give you a look at some of the 24-hour increments on this blended guide guidance showing where the possible snowfall totals could be at their heaviest. Let's start here with the snowfall totals through the west as we get from overnight tonight and then through our Friday morning. Notice here out of Nevada into southern Idaho, through a lot of parts of Wyoming, at the higher elevations of Utah, and then on over here into Colorado. That's where we're going to see a lot of spots that achieve at least 6 inches of snow up in those highest elevations. Some spots getting upwards of 8 to 12 inches, getting right around that foot mark or just above into the very highest peaks. Going to be a pretty decent snow event there, especially for a quick period of time. And then we see a quick snow moving on out here into parts of far southern South Dakota, Nebraska, and over into Iowa. You can see this little stripe of blue here indicating pretty good confidence on blended guidance that we're going to pick up at least a couple inches of additional snow on top of what the blizzard has left behind over the last few days. Maybe even some spots getting closer to 4 to 6 inches on the higher end, and then we'll just get it dusting to a couple of inches through some parts of places like Chicago, over to Fort Wayne, Indiana, northern Ohio as we get through Friday into early Saturday, and then maybe some negligible snowfall, especially for West Virginia standards there in the mountains out of that system. From there, there's your little second piece of energy, possibly bringing a dusting to a few inches of snow, maybe some locally higher amounts getting 3 to 6 inches as you come out of New Mexico into West Texas and western parts of Oklahoma into the weekend. And then that system, as of now anyway, though it could change, not forecasted to bring any snow to the south or anything like that, as it just brings rain through those zones while shifting east. Before we move on, I did want to recap those storm system impacts that we are anticipating with system number 1 and system number 2 across the country from March 6th through 10th. We could see a little bit of snow in the far northern extremes of the country and into the northeast U.S. during this time as well, but this is just focusing on those two main low pressure systems, and of course they're going to originate in the west, where we're going to see especially some of that heaviest snow out of this entire period going on through the next 24 to 48 hours after this video. Then we'll see some of those moderate snowfall accumulations moving out into some parts of Nebraska and far southern South Dakota, before most spots only get a dusting to a couple of inches eastward out of Iowa and into the northern parts of states like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, as well as into southern Michigan. We could see a few overachievers here or there, but overall that system will only bring light snow and then a little bit of light rain into the Ohio Valley and possibly mid-Atlantic, before we watch our next system bring some snow out of the Four Corners out of Friday, and then that will shift into parts of Texas and western Oklahoma, the panhandles of those states, into our Saturday. Rain, maybe some stronger storms that could bring isolated damaging winds and some flooding as you get down there closer to the Gulf Coast into the weekend. A lot of rain over the southeast as we get out of Saturday into Saturday night and Sunday. Both systems overall, though, pretty weak, especially in comparison with magnitude to the last system that moved on through. With that being said, that leaves me with only temperatures to talk about across the country, so let's go ahead and jump right into it, looking at the National Digital Forecast Database, highlighting some of those trends that I talked about with the overall weather pattern at the start of the video. First of all, looking at the near-term pattern as we just go out of tonight and into our Thursday, March 6th of 2025, what you're noticing across a lot of the country is that other than some 60s and 70s down into parts of the mid-south and the southern plains, as well as closer to the Gulf Coast, we're looking at some pretty cool air across a lot of the country. Whether you're back into Nevada, Idaho, Montana, and through parts of Colorado and Wyoming, we've got cold air on up here through parts of the Dakotas, into Minnesota, into Iowa, Wisconsin, all the way on over here into the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. A lot of 30s and 40s across the board. And this cooler than average air is also drier than average air, and that's why that next system that comes into our Friday is going to really struggle to just crank out a bunch of snow, even though these numbers where we're only going to be peaking around 35 for highs in the affected area are going to be pretty favorable for those accumulations to come out of whatever falls. Right as you get south of the 30s that we're going to have on Friday in places like Iowa and northern Illinois, though, look at these numbers. Just as you go south into southern Illinois, parts of Missouri, looking at 60s and 70s there, as well as back into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, parts of Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, whereas you get closer to the Gulf Coast, we could even be pushing it closer to 80 degrees. That's because of the brief south to north flow that this first winter storm is going to bring on up. Look at what happens behind that brief little system, though, as we go out of Friday and into our Saturday. You can see temperatures crashing into the 40s and 50s in places like Missouri, Illinois, and Kentucky, where we were just in the 60s the day before. Still got some 70s closer to the Gulf and Southeast coast. And by the way, Saturday is going to be another cold day in a sea of cold days to finish this week and go into the weekend, as we're still going to be with that northwest to southeast wind flow up here into especially the interior northeast behind that most recent mega winter storm. Temperatures only in the 20s and 30s for peak temperatures of the day Saturday back into parts of the interior northeast. We got a lot of 40s and 50s into the plains, but look at how we warm up out of Saturday into Sunday there. More 50s and 60s spreading in from Kansas and Missouri all the way up to the Dakotas and Minnesota. And then by Monday's when you can really see the warmth moving north. In fact, this flow right here, that south to north flow, the jet stream ridge, that's why I showed it to you at the start of the video. When you got the jet stream being pushed north like this, you got record warmth all the way up into the Dakotas and Minnesota, as we will be cracking 60 in some of the zones, including getting close to the Twin Cities region into our Monday, March 10th. All the way back down to Kansas, we'll be in the mid-70s there. Actually a little bit warmer than the southeast U.S. is forecasted to be in places like the Carolinas, as we'll still be behind that remnant part of the second system there into our Monday afternoon. We'll see what happens with this warmth as we go deeper into next week and beyond. Of course, whenever you've got a big field of warmth developing into especially the central and eastern U.S. and it's a little bit cooler out west, you wait for some bigger storms to come out of that. And that could mean some severe weather and maybe even some new winter weather ramps up as we go closer to mid-March. I'll keep you updated on all of that as we get into the future. With that being said, that's all I have to show you for today's update video. Of course, if you have any comments, questions, stuff you want to report from the last storm, leave that down below. Hit the subscribe button down below. Check out the links in the description of this video, and I'll see you next time.